warmly welcome to the Intimate Brass podcast, where we explore the depths of intimacy and sexuality. Each episode is a journey into personal stories and open discussions with a curiosity to healthy relationships and harnessing our aliveness to upgrade all areas of our life. My name is Lore, and I'm happy that you're here with us. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to thank you for being a part of our community. If you find value here, please share your support by liking, commenting, or sharing this episode with your friends. Your engagement truly makes a difference. I also offer a variety of in-person workshops and group programs, along with individual online journeys tailored to your needs. For more details, check out the show notes, or feel free to reach out to me directly if you're curious to learn more. Okay, so I'm here again with my sister.
Yay!
She's very excited. I'm very excited to have her here. We already had a podcast episode together a while ago. We were recording it in the bathroom of your former living place. I remember taking my recording gear with me all the way to Belgium, and then it turned out that I didn't install it well enough. And so we recorded with the Wurzer microphone of the laptop that was not near our mouths at all. So that was unfortunately not so good sound quality at all. But we talked about menstruation, menarche. This time she's visiting me for the first time in my home in Sweden, which is exciting. And we thought we could record another episode.
So, Amir, we talked about the theme of play parties.
And actually, it's interesting to talk with you about play parties because you've been listening to me when I talk about my company and what I do and my passion, and you've been very supportive in all of it, but you've actually never been at a play party yourself or any of the workshops. So it's interesting to talk with someone who is like supportive of me personally and who is open-minded, but actually also is in touch with like what maybe the outside perspective is of.
Yes, we live in different worlds.
Yeah. And I guess I'm curious when you hear, for example, the word tantra workshop or play party, like what do you imagine or what do you,
I think Tantra is much better known than play party. I think if people who are not in your circle of
in this world,
yes,
yeah,
they wouldn't immediately know what it is, or they would assume that it's for toddlers. So Tantra makes me think about breath work and intimacy on a higher level.
A higher level.
Not just physical sex, but more a connection on more in more aspects than just the physical.
Wow. I think you actually already have a broader view of what it is then.
But I am also a supporter of you, so that makes sense. Play party, I just know from what you've told me that I have an idea of what goes on and what doesn't, or what the concept is. But I can imagine that it's difficult to explain to somebody who's not in this world, as you say.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of misconceptions, I am sure.
Yeah. I have definitely heard from some, in some funny comments of people that are very unfamiliar with this. That's like, oh, that's an orgy then.
Yeah.
For example.
Which is not, it's not what it is
Well,
but it can classify as in certain circumstances, but it's not the goal.
Yeah, and depending on the agreements of the specific play party, depending on also who is holding it and just, what the setup is of that particular play party, an orgy might be a possibility of the many, many possibilities which you see there.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, how I today would describe a play party, or at least one of intimate breath, it is an adult play space where people can explore being alive and being intimate with one another, in the broad sense of the word. And so, since it's a space where people come together to really explore intimacy and sexuality in a more intentional way, hopefully, or often in a more conscious way as well, it's also a practice space for consent, for checking in, for trying out new things. And trying out new things can be that kinky thing with the whip, but it can also be trying out new things as in, how do I not lose myself in a connection?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the word play, like when we look at the nervous system, we can only truly play when we feel safe. So when we are in a state of playing, it means we are feeling fully. All the emotions can be part of it, but they're moving through us. And every moment, again, we are in touch with what we need and what we want. And like that's like the ultimate play. So it doesn't need to be like giggly or funny or jolly. Play can be, for me, is just being alive, fully embodied, and in interaction with one another and seeing what emerges from that. So that's my
That's quite a definition.
yeah.
Okay, so it's more about intentions. When we're still making the comparison with an orgy, if we're still making that comparison.
For me, it's about intentions, but of course, people can join and not have a clear intention. But there is probably still, I think, if someone would join that actually just wants to fuck,
it would not work.
It would not be the easiest environment, because at least on my play parties, there's always at least a 3-hour workshop linked that is around consent and communication, or even more, like a full day workshop where we go into themes. So you already have to join this whole journey to get to the getting laid. And then you are in an environment where people are really practicing to check in up front, to, if it's a play party where genital play is allowed, to have safer sex conversations, which will also have been in the introduction or in the workshop. It's like to create an orgy for yourself, like you've seen in porn movies. It will ask a lot of skill, because you need everybody to be on board with your desire. You need everybody to feel safe enough to step into it. You need to have checked in a lot with one another. Like
you're slowing down a lot.
Exactly. And yeah.
There are easier ways to just get laid.
I think so. Yeah. But it doesn't take away that it is a possibility in some play parties. Yeah.
I think my question would be, why do it? Why do this in a group setting? What's the benefit, in a way, of doing it in a group instead of just giving people the tools and maybe do a little bit practice one-on-one or as a couple, maybe? Why? I imagine you do it also in private sessions as well, in some way, these kind of exercises.
But why have the play party and explore sexuality?
Yes.
And
Intimacy. It's, yes. To me, intimacy is so very intimate. And I would never do this in a group setting.
Mhm.
Or not, yeah.
Do you want to specify?
No, I don't.
Yeah, of course, this will not be everybody's cup of tea or cup of coffee. She was just taking a sip of coffee. There are a lot of people that do have the longing, or have that there's some element of exploring in a group space that is exciting. It also creates just a whole different setting, a whole different atmosphere than the usual being in the bedroom with your partner or your lover. But of course, some just don't feel like doing that and they won't come. But some couples
They
or
won't
some
come.
people, yeah, they won't come. They will want to explore in a group space but stay with one another. Some people join and just want to feel comfortable in this setting but are not interacting with anybody for the first time or a few times.
They're not interacting.
In the beginning, it can just be like very new and like, oh my God, can I just sit and breathe here? Like, can I not tense up or freeze? Because it's such a taboo subject.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so unusual for some people to see other people play with one another or be in an intimate setting together. And maybe it has been a desire or a fantasy, but then when it actually happens, it's like, okay, this is different. And a lot can happen with the nervous system. And talking about the nervous system, I think this is such a. I mean, a lot of the workshop spaces I'm holding is also practice space when it comes to regulating the nervous system and feeling where you're at. But like an open play space like this is also. Let me start somewhere else. So I have colleagues that recently said like, "Whew, it's an edge for me to be at a play party where they call it red play parties, or maybe there's other words somewhere else where genital play is allowed. It's an edge for me." So this is what my colleagues said to me. And in my experience, a lot of people are actually in a freeze because it's so new for us. And we need to approach it slowly. And this is something that I very often say at the start of my play parties is like, we all know how to go fast. Why not try out going slow? And going slow means you give your system more time to catch up when something happens. And going slow also means it's probably going to feel more vulnerable and more intimate.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you need to do less to feel more sometimes. But that can be like a discovery for people. And then I do see value in creating spaces where we can learn to track our nervous system and actually feel, okay, when am I in freeze? When am I in fight? When am I in flight? When am I in fawning. And fawning is a fourth survival or what a survival strategy or trauma response, or what other word can we use for that?
I think survival instinct is a good one. It's a
Survival,
reaction
yeah.
to
These are like the four main strategies that we have all in our system and that we will apply depending on the situation and what seems most fitting and highest chance to make it. And depending on our conditioning and how we grew up and what survival strategy we got most familiar with. And so I see real value in actually having a space where we can learn to regulate our nervous systems. And as I'm editing this podcast episode, I feel like adding a little bit more of the personal story and the vulnerability that comes up when I listen to me, listen to myself speaking into the value of spaces where we can learn new ways of being with our own body, our own nervous system, when it comes to the themes of intimacy and sexuality. And maybe you've been catching bits and pieces in my latest blog posts or some of my previous episodes. But this past year, a lot of things have been resurfacing when it comes to early experiences, when it comes to physical intimacy in my life. There has been a lot going on in my family story, as well as just this week, someone wrote to me that 8 years ago got me into a very painful experience where a man actually manipulated me, used drugs on me, and misused the whole situation. And in any of these stories and memories, I have been so deeply, painfully stuck in those patterns like fawning and like freezing, as well as fleeing. But mainly the fawning and the freezing, where I felt like my whole body was screaming no, and I couldn't do anything about it. I didn't know how to. I got into situations that were just really bad. And I realized that when talking about the nervous system and saying, well, a play party, in my view, is a great learning space, maybe it sounds a little bit far fetched or something. And I just realized that for me, it just really has been. And that's where I'm speaking from. I have been needing intentional spaces which had a bigger context to rewire my system and to learn new ways of being with my own body and with other people's body in a way where I can stay present and take care of myself and be an adult and not lose myself or get stuck in patterns that are not serving anybody. So I just wanted to add this little piece before the episode now continues.
how during these play parties do you sometimes recognize when somebody goes into one of these reactions, and how do you cope with that?
Mm.
And are there different strategies to the different mechanisms?
Yeah, they all have very clear expressions and then more subtle expressions. And so if someone is in a flight, you might literally just want to leave the space, or you're distracting, or you want to go very fast and then do things the whole time, kind of like fleeing away from every moment. But it can also be way more subtle way, basically. Same for fight, is like getting defensive, wanting to win a discussion, using dominance to try to get control over the situation, literally wanting to push someone away can be a very physical reaction, and then you have all the subtle forms of that, and those are maybe easier to recognize. But then there's also freeze, which is can be very hard to track. I mean, of course, if I have a trained eye, I will maybe see it, and I might not. And it has happened before in a workshop that afterwards a woman comes to me with her partner and says, actually, I've had this experience with this man that was just really behaving inappropriately. And I felt
During
a weekend retreat. And during this weekend retreat, I talked with them about this, like also recently. During the retreat, it's multiple times that I'm saying, if you are sitting with something, if you're feeling alone with something, please reach out to someone of the group or to me. So I'm naming that, but it can be so invisible because it's only you who's feeling it. And so when it comes to freezing, the most simple questions, it can feel like, I don't know, it can feel impossible to answer. So even if someone wants to check in with you, it's just not coming out.
It's a difficult one.
It's a difficult one. And fawning as well. Fawning is literally like you want to adapt to the other person to feel safe. You will say yes even when you feel a no. You will try to please them so they are giving you the affection and the safety that you're longing for. I feel so damn familiar with that pattern, and it's really hard for people to track unless you really get familiar. Like when you start to recognize the pattern in others, it can be easy to also track it for yourself and vice versa. When you're like, which restaurant shall we choose? And you're both like, I don't know. You can choose. Maybe we go there. Oh, but do you want to go there? Like it's so obvious that there's no one really standing up for what they really want or what they really need.
I can imagine it's a very difficult one to notice,
To track.
For yourself, because it might seem like they really want the things they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. It seems like it's your longing.
Yeah. But they're just tuning into the other person's
wants, or maybe just even what I'm imagining the other person wants.
Yeah.
I recently had the 4th edition of the Pleasers Pleasure workshop, which is all about people pleasing in intimate settings. And I also, the last time I started saying like, actually, me being stuck in this pattern and getting in such nasty situations for myself over the first years where I was sexually active really got me started in doing this work and getting to a point where I was like, oh my God, I need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
and going to the first like consent workshop ever back then. So yeah, fawning.
Fawning.
But and that's the thing, like in the most beautiful world, someone else can notice for you where you're at, but it isn't somebody else's responsibility.
No, and also it shouldn't be. I think in the most beautiful worlds, we just don't do it.
Good point. But of course, in a partnership, I have definitely made the requests of like, hey, can you now and then check in with me in this way? Or while we have sex, can we like pause and slow down? And can I see if I can still feel my body, basically? So, in that sense, somebody else can support you and help you. But it's ultimately you yourself who needs to get familiar with how all these different states feel in the body and how you can bring yourself back.
Mm-hmm. In any case, it starts with the awareness that you are reacting in a way sometimes, and then to have the courage to discuss that with a partner, which is also not easy. And then also to have a partner who is
on board,
aware of your body and how the subtle changes maybe have a cause.
An impact, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Because the more you are in tune with your own body,
that's what I was.
The more you're in tune with your own body, the more you will also notice when the other's body is not relaxed. I notice when my lover isn't breathing well, I immediately feel it also in my pussy. It's like I don't even need to think about, oh, is he breathing well? It's just I feel it. And then I need to ask him again, can you breathe? But earlier in my life, I would never have noticed even where the other's body is truly at because I wasn't even in touch with my own body.
Mm-hmm.
I guess for me, there's always like new layers of like subtleties in noticing where I'm at. And recently I became more aware of a tendency I have when I am with close family, actually, where there's like a certain kind of humor that we have that can be truly just humor and feel playful, but there's like a very quick, dangerous edge with passive aggressively, like sarcastically saying things that are actually also holding truth, but it's not been spoken about except from through the jokes or the comments. And I noticed that I do that very little with the people that I have close to me that aren't family. But then when I'm like with our parents, I can notice that it comes up.
Yeah, you don't do it with me anymore. But we talked about it. It is just passive aggressive, I think, and we made it sort of an inside joke to talk that way.
Yeah,
to each other.
So it's very common to do it in that constellation, in that setting, and then to like become aware of it over and over again because that is a fight. Like
you fall back into it.
I fall back into it, and like I was there with a friend visiting family, and when I came back, I was like, I didn't do it right. Like I was like checking in with him, is like, right? I was like quite, and he was like, did you think about that comment there? Did you think about the way you said it there? And I was like, oh my God, like it can be so tricky to become aware of a pattern in the moment, and such a learning process.
I am curious what the link is with your play parties.
I guess just that for me, it is a place where by going slower and by bringing more awareness, by coming together and having the workshop before and the practices and the communication, I hope, it's my wish, that these kind of spaces can be explorative spaces where people can start tracking also their own patterns and maybe make shifts or changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in a broader sense.
Yes, because all of these things that we're sharing now are completely applicable for sure when it comes to sex.
Okay, so what you're saying is your play parties actually help these people in life, in general. That's not what you're saying, but it could be true. Just by being more aware of what they're actually doing and how they're actually reacting. And
if they are using the play party as an integration space of all the practices and the workshops that they're also doing, then that is my hope, yes. And it for sure has been for me, that I take something with me every time. Aside from that, it can also just be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like, that's the thing, it's like people can come to play parties and think that they'll just have fun and roll around with, I don't know.
It sounds like a lot of work.
But it can also be very confrontational for people. And you have to take initiative. You need to invite people. There's no one that's going to say, okay, now find 2 new people and we're going to do this practice.
Oh, it sounds horrible.
It's like, so you need to take initiative and people can say no. So you will probably get rejected at some point if you dare to really go for longings. And that is part of it too. And there will be moments where you are in connection and someone will maybe tell you like, okay, now it feels enough for me. Because 3 hours in a row with one person can be not what you want. So there's going to be an ending. You might have moments where you want to be alone for a moment, but you have a hard time doing that because you're like, oh, I should be in connection. Or like you have a certain idea of what there should happen or not happen. And it's like, for me, that's really the liberation of like getting rid of what you think should happen, like navigating your own longings in a healthy way, not getting stuck or hooked on them, but using them as a navigation system. But then when it doesn't happen or something else, like it's like, how do we approach all of these things? And then the communication, creating a setting that feels good for everybody involved. Oh my God, there's so much.
Wow. That's a lot to manage.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to come?
No. Actually, I have one last question. You were talking about 3 hours. How long do these parties last? I don't think I have a clear idea of.
I mean, there's an introduction, and then usually I guide some beginning so they can like have some shorter meetings. It's not just like, okay, now it's starting. There's like some kind of bridge. That bridge can be from 5 minutes to half an hour, depending on where the group is at. And then everybody can make a play party how long they want, but usually it's between 2 hours and 3, maybe 3.5 hours.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you think of people like me who would never do this? You don't have to include this.
Of course, that's completely okay. I don't need everybody to be into this.
Okay.
Not
great.
at all. And if at any point you are longing to learn more around what's possible for you, like intimately or sexually or relationally, or if you're struggling with patterns that are repeating within your relationships, or you're having painful sex or whatever, there are other ways to learn about your body, or to have private sessions or couple sessions or do online courses, or like there's so many ways to learn and explore, and that's my only hope, that there's a way that one would reach out to.
I assume that's the benefits of you also giving private courses, workshops, weekends.
This is where I feel very supported by my sister. Yeah.
Great. Good times.
Do you want to say or ask anything more?
I am thinking, what if people who actually want to join are afraid? What would you say to those people?
Dare to be picky with where you go and who you go to. Feel in, is the way it's set up, is the facilitator really fitting for me? Do I feel safer in a bigger group? Some people do, because then they feel more anonymous. Do you feel better in a smaller group? Some people do, but some people think like, oh my God, such a small group, it's going to be so
They feel seen,
intimate and seen. So feel in what you want. And then there's like, I call my play parties sensual play parties, when the underpants stay on. And that can be a really good first step. There are also first cuddle parties, or fully closed open spaces where people are just hanging out and exploring, everything that can work with all the clothes on, in connection. And then feel in, how much of a workshop do you want up front? Do you want a full day and get to know the group already? Do you want to have a certain topic covered before you feel like jumping in? And then the first time is going to feel maybe like a jump. If it's the very first time ever, it's going to feel like a jump. But reach out to the facilitator. Check your assumptions. Usually there are always people that are available there as well to just sit with. I have always a me time corner where you will sit on your own and nobody will approach you, but people can also just sit with me and have a little chat. So yeah, feeling, what do you need? What would make the jump
Easier.
like a jump you want to take? And then don't have too many expectations on yourself for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Great. Very good about assumptions. Don't question your assumptions. Or
yeah. Actually,
beautiful.
checking assumptions is a practice that I also bring in a lot in, for example, the Liberation Journey, where we have a group traveling over 3 weekends with one another, and then calls in between. And this checking assumptions is such a important, useful practice for people to get used to. Like, okay, what am I assuming the other one thinks, the other one wants? What am I assuming about the situation? What am I assuming about what should happen or cannot happen or is not okay? Or so yes, I think that's a really important one.
To just practice in general in life as well.
Yeah.
Actually, everything you said.
Yeah.
That's very valuable. Very.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is like my passion, and I know not everybody maybe looks at it the same way, but in my world, this is really like life lessons, but like learned through the lens of intimacy and the body and sexuality, which is just my most preferred, fun, pleasurable way of approaching it. But it's really about life for me.
Yes. That's a beautiful perspective.
Okay, shall we wrap up?
Yes, go to Intimate Breath for more information about Laura's upcoming. No.
Yeah, website is www.intimate-breath.com. I just really want to thank you, my sister, for talking with me on my podcast. I really enjoy it a lot.
Yes. We like to talk, so it's nice to do this
with a
in a different
microphone.
setting as well. Yeah.
And I also want to thank you. And now I wasn't looking at my sister. I'm thinking about you who's listening right now. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And let us know if you found something valuable or inspiring, or send it to your friends or share it on social media, because that is just such a support.